everyone, it's Lauren. Welcome or welcome back. Today I'm doing another best and worst video, and this one is all about my best and worst blushes. I've just gone through my collection and chosen a few that I feel like really stand out for either a great reason or a couple great reasons, or some that stand out for not so good reasons, and some that are just kind of meh in between that I also wanted to mention. But that's kind of the gist of today's video. If you like this style, I have done other ones on my channel. I've done like best and worst concealers, best and worst drugstore mascaras, body creams, moisturizers, dry shampoos. I've done quite a lot, so if you want to check out those, I will have a link in the cards right now in the upper right hand corner, as well as in the description below to that whole best and worst playlist. But I will be talking about a bunch of different types of blushes today, creams, powders, drugstore, high-end, just a whole range of products, so hopefully you'll be able to hear some information on products that you are interested in. I will be linking all the products I mentioned today in the description below, so if you want to check any of them out, just know that any of the links that have a star beside the product name are affiliated links. Just means if you purchase the product through that link, I can make a commission off of your purchase. It's not going to cost anything extra to you, but I do like to always make that clear just at the start of all my videos. Now, with all that being said, let's get into it. So I have a whole container of just a bunch of blushes from my collection. I thought it would just be easier to take out one of the containers rather than like, you know, get a new one, start filling it up with the products I want. I was like, I can just pick out the products that I want to mention. But the first one that I want to talk about is a drugstore option. It is the e.l.f. Primer Infused Blush. Here's what it looks like. I believe these are like $6, and this one right here is in the shade Always Rosy. So here's what the inside of the product looks like. It is pretty much a matte blush, and this shade right here, Always Rosy, I did have another version of this, honestly, probably 2 years ago now, and when I had that one, it was a little bit more like mauve-y, rosy type of a blush, which is definitely, if you watch my channel, it's definitely up my alley. This one is a little bit more like burnt red shade. It's still very pretty, and I think that as long as you don't go in with a really heavy hand with your, or even just a heavy hand, I would just say that to be careful. As long as you don't go in with a super heavy hand when you're applying it onto your cheeks, I feel like you can get a really nice look from this. Because it is matte and because it is kind of a more intense shade, you just have to be careful with it. But if you go in with a light hand and really kind of work it on to the cheeks, it looks so beautiful. I especially love it during like the fall and winter time, just because I feel like this shade really does suit itself nicely to these seasons that we're in. And personally, I think that this blush, I feel like for me, blush is just something that like is the first thing to go when it comes to my makeup throughout the day. Like, it is the first thing to wear away, and I'm always struggling to, you know, find one that's going to really stand throughout the day, especially from the drugstore. And for this one, I mean, I really do feel like, I don't know, you know, if it's because it's primer infused or whatever, you know, it may be, I do feel like it really does stand nicely throughout the day, and when I take my makeup off, my blush is still there, which I really do appreciate. And so this is one that I absolutely love for that. And if you're looking for, you know, a more affordably priced blush that is going to last a while on your cheeks, then this is definitely one I would recommend to go for. Okay, so I have two different Milani blush formulas I'm going to talk about. This first one is the Milani Baked Blush. Here's what it looks like. This shade is, I believe, Berry Amore. It's number 3, and this is what the inside of it looks like. This is obviously a more baked blush formula. It's got kind of a luminous finish to it. The shade Berry Amore is kind of like, I know Luminoso is a really popular shade in this blush. This is very similar to it, but it's a little bit more on the orangey side. It's got a little bit more pinky coloring to it. It's just got a little bit more pigment, and it's a little bit more peachy orange, which is kind of interesting because when I think berry, I think like, I don't know, more of a berry mauve-y type of shade, but this to me is really just more of a peachier shade, which I really do like. I just feel like I have to be careful when it comes to the intensity of this product, because once I put it on, I feel like I can look kind of like clown-like, a little strange. So I do just have to be kind of careful and use more of a light hand, which is kind of interesting for a baked blush. I feel like normally I can build it up pretty nicely and, you know, not have to worry too much about my placement or anything. But with this one, I kind of do, and I have to be careful with the bronzers that I pair it with, because sometimes if I pair it with a bronzer that is too warm toned or is too orangey, it can just look absolutely crazy on the cheeks. So I think this was more of a flaw in me picking out the color. I really feel like I should get another one from this baked line because it has such a good reputation. As for this shade though, and my complexion, I just have to be careful with it, but I do think it has a nice formula. I would, you know, purchase it again, and that's really all I can say about this one. As for a Milani product that I really enjoy, I feel like really does stand out for me, and honestly, I wish I used it more. I just forget about it. This one right here is the Milani Rose Powder Blush. This is in the shade Romantic Rose. I don't know why I forgot the name. I was like, Rose Romantic, Romantic Rose, but here is what Romantic Rose looks like in the pan. This one I think does come across a little bit more peachy than you might initially think, but I don't feel like it's too overwhelming or too much. I feel like it is definitely one that you can wear year round. It just suits very nicely with more like pale, lighter tone complexions that are struggling. Like, I know I struggle when I find a blush that is too peachy. It's just like I kind of mentioned with the other Milani blush, it can look a little strange sometimes, and this is one that I think is very easy to work with, but still gives that kind of peachy look that I especially love during the spring and summer months. But I mean, like I said, it can work year round. And with this blush in particular, as far as the formula goes, I really do like it. I would say it just is kind of more of like a satiny type of blush. It looks so nicely on the skin and it just blends out very well. You can build it up. You don't have to worry about, you know, going in with a heavy hand if you're like me and just tend to kind of build up the product pretty quickly. This is one you don't have to worry about doing that with. You can just kind of, you know, quickly throw it on and, you know, call it a day. And I do feel like it has a decent wear time throughout the day, so that's another thing I like about this. Overall, this one, as far as formula goes, I feel like really does stand and compares with a lot of the other more higher end type of products in my collection. So if you're looking for something that, you know, is going to be just a really good blush but isn't going to cost you, you know, an arm and a leg, then this is one that I definitely would recommend picking up. Which honestly, who doesn't want like a great product that's not going to be super expensive? But anyway, this is a really nice one as well. Okay, so if you're wondering what my favorite blush formula has been this year, I hate to say it because it is a little bit pricier, but it's been Nars. I have a bunch of little minis in my hand right here, and it's unfortunate because I left I'm like pre-filming this a little bit, and I left the like bigger size, the normal size version in my dorm at school because I was like, I have the mini size of that shade anyway, so like why would I, you know, bring it back and forth or whatever. And it is over holiday break, and I was just like, I'll just leave it there. Well, then I decided to do this video, and I was like, I don't want the full size. So whenever I'm talking about like pricing for these, since I don't think you can buy the minis individually, like they'll come in a bunch of sets, and if you can get your hands on them, highly recommend because they last me forever. But I'm going to be talking about the full size because that's like what you could actually purchase. As for the shades in this blush, like I really have yet to find one that I dislike. However, I don't want to go through all the names of the ones that I love just because honestly the names are a little interesting and I really just don't want to go through them all. But if you find one that you like, I really do think, like, I've tried out probably 5 or 6 at this point and have yet to find one I dislike. So if that says anything, but these are the, you can't even see them. They look like little babies, but here are the Nars blushes. The one that I have really been loving that does have a name that I can say is Gulu, and this is actually the one that I have on my cheeks right now. It gives a really pretty flush. Here's what it looks like. It looks a little bit more intense in the pan than it actually is in real life, just when you actually apply it to the cheeks. And now, strictly talking about the formula on these blushes, I feel like they have the perfect balance of, you know, just enough shimmer, just enough to give a little bit of glow, but not look too crazy, not look artificial, and I can still even top on more highlighter if I want to after, which I do like, because I do like highlighter and everything. And as for the lasting power on these, I do feel like it has pretty good lasting power. I don't know if it's quite up to the, you know, e.l.f. one that I just talked about, but it's still really good, and I feel like to have that shimmer and to just, you know, sit the way that it does. I just love the way that it blends onto my cheeks. You know, you can't go in with like, you know, digging your brush in the pan, but you can, you know, get a decent amount on your brush and you can really blend it out from that point on, you know, just where you want it on the face. And that is what I love so much. This one is just a shade that I've been loving, but I've really tried so many of them, and you guys probably know some of them and you've heard some of them before. And so when in doubt, like, I really do recommend these blushes, and I hate that it's one of the pricier ones that I'm talking about today, but it definitely has been a star in my book this year. So now that I've just like totally raved about the Nars blushes, let me talk about one that I don't enjoy. Okay, so this one right here is from HIKARI. Here's what it looks like. It's just the HIKARI blush, and this is in the shade Tango. So here's what it looks like. I believe this is like $5. First off, the shade clearly is not for me, and I know that. I got it in some subscription box a while back, but probably Ipsy or something like that. But this blush, very bright. Like, you can see, like, neon pink. So if you're into that, maybe you'd like it better than I did, but really what it came down to me, the reason I don't like it is because of the formula. It's very patchy, and you really have to go in with just the lightest hand. I mean, like, tap, your brush in there. Like, you cannot dip it or anything like that, and you probably want to tap it off after too, because it's just so chalky and pigmented that way. Like, it really does kind of remind me of like a bright pink like stick of chalk. Like, it's just a lot. And I actually love like a few things. Well, really the thing that I can think of from HIKARI that stands out to me is their lip gloss. They have this beautiful lip gloss. If I can find it, I'll link it below, but I love it so much. Like, I hate, you know, just totally bashing on HIKARI, but this blush is not it. If you come across it, don't get it. It's not worth your $5. It's just not. Like, you would be completely wasting your money. So this is one that is a no-go for me. So I'm honestly not the biggest like cream type of blush person. I know that's kind of pretty popular right now and has been for a while now, but this is one that I do really enjoy, and I think it's because it's like a cream to powder formula. But this is the one from ColourPop. It's their Super Shock blush, and this is in the shade Count Me In. So I'll show you guys what the actual shade looks like. And the way that I use this, sometimes I'll go in with like a beauty blender or, you know, that style of sponge, and I'll, you know, have it be kind of damp. I'll, you know, pat the end of it in there, and then I'll add it onto my cheeks. Sometimes I'll use my fingers. I've honestly found one of my favorite ways to do it is using kind of like a stippling type of blush centered brush. I feel like that looks really pretty, especially if the bristles are a little bit more smooth. I find that I can get a really pretty diffused look on the cheeks. And so this is one of the few cream blushes that's really stood out to me. I think it's because it applies more cream, but it has more of a, I don't want to say powdery look, because that kind of sounds bad, but kind of a look that looks like more of a powder blush from that point. So I've really been enjoying this. If you're someone that normally does not like those type of blushes, cream ones, then this may be one you want to give a go. This is another one of my favorite formulas, but this shade in particular, I love it for the fall and winter time. I just think it gives this really pretty mauve-y type of flush to the cheeks and pairs so nicely with different lipsticks that I wear during this time of year, and I can say so many great things about it. It is the MAC Pro Longwear Blush. Here's what it looks like. I've had this one in my collection for quite a while, but it still works great, so I still use it. Honestly, the shade name wore off, so I can't tell you exactly the shade, but I do think it reminds me a lot of, sorry, there goes my dog, I can't remember the name now, but I wrote it down. I'll have like the name that it reminds me of that I'll be linking below. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but like I'm pretty sure it's very similar to that, and when I've like looked at it, I've been like, oh, that kind of looks like the one I have, and I really want to pick up another just because, you know, I've almost gotten through this, and I really do love this formula. I feel like it lasts a long time. It blends so nicely on the skin, on the skin. It's very blendable. I just feel like it looks so nice, and it is pretty much a matte blush, which I'm totally okay with because of how well it blends out. Sometimes I find that matte blushes can be a little bit stiff, hard to blend, chalky, just don't have the, you know, either they don't have the pigment that I'm looking for or they have way too much. And this one is that perfect in between. It has, you know, MAC has really, like, their formula has stood the test of time, and I think absolutely for good reason. So if you've been interested, this is my stamp of approval. If you find a shade, because they have so many different shades out there, if you find one that you like, I think you'd enjoy it, and you know, I think you definitely get your money's worth. I don't know, again, if the high price tag is necessarily super representative of an elevated formula that you're getting that, you know, just is so much better than some of the drugstore ones, but it's still really good, and, you know, I've used it, so, like, obviously I've really liked it. So I have two other e.l.f. blushes to talk about. They're of the same line, but just different shades. They're the e.l.f. Mineral Infused Blushes. First off, I have the shade Twinkled Pink, so that's what that one looks like. This one has a little bit more shimmer to it. I find that it's very easy to apply. You can, you know, build up as much as you want. You don't have to worry about it too much, but it does kind of wear away quickly throughout the day. I don't know if that's due to the shimmer or the lightness of the actual shade, but it is one that just, you know, it kind of fades away fast. So that is something to note, but I do think it's really pretty and it gives a really nice shimmer for a drugstore blush. But you can definitely see it. So, you know, if you're not into that kind of a little bit fake looking shimmer, then you're probably not gonna like it. This shade right here is Mellow Mauve. This one I would not say, well, I don't know. I really don't think it reminds me of a mauve too much, just because I feel like it has a little bit more of an orangey kind of tan look to it that at times is not the most flattering. Again, this is one that does blend pretty nicely on the skin. You do have to be careful, go in with a little bit of a lighter hand, and I do feel like despite the shade being a little bit more pigmented than the Twinkle Pink, it still does have some trouble when it comes to like wearing away throughout the day. I find that it just doesn't last quite as long as, especially quite as long as that other e.l.f. blush, but then, you know, even like my higher end ones and stuff. So this is a formula that's good, but it's just not the best out there. It's kind of one of those other meh type. Here's another drugstore blush that really does rank high in my book. It is the Maybelline Fit Me blush, and this right here is the shade Mauve. And unlike some of the other mauve themed or named blushes that I've mentioned today, this is one that I really do feel like kind of, you know, matches its name. In the pan, it kind of looks more of like a pinky purple, but when you apply it to the cheeks, it's beautiful. It really does just come across as mauve the way that I like it. It just is so easy to blend. You can build it up as much as you like. It just is one that looks so pretty on the skin, just truly like, you know, you just have a little bit of flush to your cheeks, but kind of in that more, not cool tone, but a little bit more cool tone than like a typical flush. It's so nice for this time of year, but I really do use it like year round as well. It just suits really nicely with my complexion, and if you have a similar skin tone to me, I think you should definitely try this out. You'd really enjoy it. This has been around for so long, and it's one that I feel like is kind of overlooked now, but honestly, the formula is there. It really does rival some of my more higher end ones, so this is another one that I really enjoyed. I feel like I'm raving about all of them, but it's a really good one too. So if you're into more of like a glowy type of a blush, this may be one you want to consider. It's the Hourglass Ambient Lighting Blush. Here's what it looks like, or the outer packaging on it. And this is in the shade Diffused Heat. So you can see it's got kind of some strokes of magenta in there, as well as some more like cream type of like stripes in there. But when you combine it together, it comes across as honestly, as the name says, like diffused heat, I'm like, okay, heat, like I'm thinking like bright, but it's really just comes across as like a soft light pink. It's a little bit on the warmer side, which is totally fine. I find that this one, you know, I can just use so easily. It's another one that it honestly comes across very seamless on the skin. Like when you apply it, it just kind of like blends in, like looks like a natural glow, a natural flush. It's really pretty. This is one I have to say, I do really like it and I do get use out of it. But if I knew what I knew now, I don't think I would have purchased this, just because I don't use it as much as some of my other ones that are, you know, sometimes half the price, maybe less. Like it just sometimes just sits there in my collection. I feel like it just kind of collects dust at times. I do really enjoy it, and if you're interested in it for some reason, like you're really drawn towards it, then yeah, like totally go for it. But it's definitely a blush that I think the higher end price tag just makes it not as great of a blush, because it doesn't necessarily, you know, stand up to that high price. Next, let's talk about this Buxom Wanderlust Primer Infused Blush. Here's what it looks like. This is in the shade Ibiza, so here's what the inside looks like. This blush is pigmented. You know, I've talked a lot about, you know, the buildup of blushes, how some of them are really easy to build up, some of them are not so easy to build up. You get it. This one, you tap it on, and if you don't blend it out immediately, that is where your blush is going to be. And so I would very much recommend going with either, you know, just a really light hand, or just being very, very careful and intentional about where you place this product, because it, as the name suggests, it is, you know, primer infused, whatever that may mean, but that to me means it's going to be long lasting and it's going to stay put. This definitely does that. It stays put for sure, which, you know, can be really nice, because once you have your blush where you want it, it's not a problem. Like, you want it to stay there. And long lasting, of course you want it to be long lasting. But if you mess up, that can be a real issue. So for me, honestly, I don't really draw, like, one, because of the coloring, it is a little bit of a more brighter pink, so I definitely have to be in the mood. I have to, you know, there's certain times where I love this blush and I love having it in my collection, but honestly, those moments don't come by too often, because you guys know, I like what I like, rosy, mauve, more basic, neutrally shades. But when I do want this, it definitely, like, is great for, like, summer months when I'm wanting, like, a bold kind of a look, and this can look so pretty. But I definitely never use it when I'm wanting a look, like when I'm wanting to look, you know, really elevated, when I, you know, am wanting to impress a lot of people or whatever it is. Like on special occasions, this is not the blush I go for, just because one mistake can really do you in with this one. It's really nice, but honestly, formula-wise, I think I've talked about this before, but if I had the option to pick up this one or the e.l.f. one, maybe I'd pick up this one, but if I knew the price of them, I would definitely pick up the e.l.f. one, because they really work the same in regards to like long wearing, pigmentation, that sort of a deal. Now let's talk about two blushes from Jane Iredale. These are the Pure Pressed blushes. I have two different shades. One of them I get a ton of use out of. It is just my perfect type of a shade. One of them I don't get quite as much use out of, and that one right here is the shade Clearly Pink. It's very similar in the shade to that one Ibiza from Buxom. This, you know, it's just kind of a more I don't know, just bright pinky shade. Not quite as bright as some of the other ones, but still pretty bright for me to use like on the day-to-day. This one right here, Cotton Candy, you can hardly see it anymore. Like, I majorly hit pan on it. This one I'd recommend to anyone with a fair complexion. I feel like this has just the amount of shimmer, just the amount of kind of pinkness to it. It gives the most beautiful flush look to the cheeks. I do say for like fair complexions, because if you were to use this on deeper complexions, I don't know how well it would show up, this particular shade. But the formula is amazing. Like, you know, I can build it up to my liking. I can really get, you know, either like a really soft look, or I can get like a nice pop of color on the cheeks. And it just looks so pretty. That's, I mean, the best way that I can put it, just like a natural flush to the cheeks. So pretty. The formula is really nice. These are a little bit more expensive, but I do think the formula on them is very nice. And if you've been interested in this brand, or, you know, that blush like shade is really calling your name, it's worth it, guys. Like, it is so pretty. Okay, now for kind of more like cream liquid type of blushes. These are the Glossier Cloud Paints. Again, 2 different shades. The first one that I've got is Beam, and then the other one is Dusk. So Beam is obviously going to be kind of a more peachy, bright pink shade, but it does wear into the skin, like when you blend it into the skin, just very like pretty. It's not too intense unless you really do build it up, which you can easily do, but I feel like when I just initially apply it, I can get it to the way that I like. And then this one is not going to be quite as intense as it may look. It's a little bit more of a tan, warm tone, blushy type shade. Which I do have to be a little bit more careful with, just because with my skin tone, that really warm look is not always the most flattering. So what I do a lot of the times is actually combine the two, and I just think it looks so pretty. It gives me the right balance of pink, the right balance of kind of a warm look to it, and it just is nice on the cheeks. What I find myself doing to apply these is I apply them onto the back of my hand, and then I mix them together, and then I'll use like a damp beauty blender and tap it on that way, or even my fingers, or whatever I think works best. I'm, again, not using these that often just because I'm not a big cream liquid blush gal. But if you are, I really do like them, especially if you're into the more natural looks, because this is so easy to blend into the skin and just make very seamless and not, you know, wham in your face type of a blush. It definitely can be a very natural, subtle kind of look. So if that's what you're into, then I think you'd really like it. I don't think you necessarily need 2 different shades. I just did because they have like a whole pack. I can link the pack version and the individual version below. Both will be affiliated, but they will be linked down below. I like them, but again, I think it just comes down to personal preference, why I don't use them all the time. But for a liquid blush or cream blush, whatever you want to call it, it stands up pretty nicely. Alright, that is the video for today. If you enjoyed it, definitely give it a thumbs up so I know to do more best and worst videos in the future, or more videos about blushes, this style of video basically. I'd really appreciate it, and if you're new here, I'd love if you would subscribe before you head on out, or you could even watch another video after you subscribe, whatever you want to do. I just want to thank you so much for being here and spending some time with me on my channel. Really does mean a lot, so I hope you guys know how much it all means to me. If you want to talk about some of your favorite blushes, your least favorite blushes, anything in general, just leave it in the comments down below. I love interacting with you guys in the comments, so anything you gotta say, just let us know down there. But thank you so much for being here. I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope you have a great couple of days until my next video is posted, and I will see you when it is. Bye!